Hi everyone, it's Sam from Sitemate. In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can use Dashpivot for our method statements. So depending on what part of the world you're in, they might be called safe work method statements, or SWMS, or they might be called risk assessment method statements, or RAMS. And when conducting high-risk work, method statements are really important because they set out all of the high-risk work activities that are being undertaken, the hazards that are associated with those activities, and then the control measures that are being put in place to reduce those risks. And Dashpivot helps make SWMS accessible to your team from wherever they are via the computer or via the mobile app, and keeps all of those records standardized across your entire organization and easy to track and easy to find. There's also some really neat features which we'll cover in this video about how you can actually scan your workers' digital Sitemate IDs to actually capture their signatures at the bottom of a SWMS to acknowledge that they've read and understood the SWMS document. So we're going to cover all of that in this video. When you open your Dashpivot account, you'll want to head to the template section. And if you don't have any method statement templates set up just yet, you want to click this Add Template button and follow the prompts. Now there's two options. You can either build your own method statement from scratch. We do have some free method statement templates available in our free public template library. Just search for SWMS or method statement, and you'll see there's actually quite a few in there. You can add those into your account, and then you can make modifications to that method statement template once it's inside your Dashpivot account. So once you've added those in, and we actually have some already set up here. I've got a demolition SWMS just here. So we're going to click on that and run through an example. So you can see no forms have been created just yet. So we need to, in order to fill out a new method statement, we need to click this green button. And it's going to pull up a fresh new form for us. Now, like every other form inside of Dashpivot, it's comprised of a series of fields. And these fields are customizable. We'll get to that in just a moment. But you can see we've got a date field up the top. We've then got a table for the organization details, another table for the project details. And then under demolition work, you can actually see there's quite a few sections for the pieces of equipment, the signage, emergency procedures, and so on. So of course, we'd go ahead and fill all of this out. We're not going to do all of that in this video, but you get the idea. You just work your way through the form, and a lot of method statements ultimately will have a table that looks like this, where we've actually got a list of all the job steps. We've got the hazards that are associated with that job step and the controls that need to be put in place. What is the risk score? So that's based off this matrix. This is very typical of method statements, having a risk matrix to assess the risks involved. And then we'll have a column for the person who's responsible for that job step and implementing all of those controls. So some of these types of method statements can actually become quite lengthy. So you can see this one has a lot of information in it. So it's really important that that information is easy to find and always easy to reference. So with Dashpivot, that's really easy. Now you can see this table actually has a lot of information pre-filled. So we don't actually have to fill this out every time we generate a new method statement. But there can be times where this information doesn't actually cover everything that is related to the specifics of the project that's being carried out. So what we'll typically do is set up an additional table below it that's set up as what we call a default table, which basically just means that we can add additional rows to the table. So we can just complete these fields here, the cells inside this table, and add as many as we need. There's no cap on the number of rows. So it's really easy to fill that out. Now, one of the features in Dashpivot that's great for things like method statements is that if we have a table for collecting the signatures of all the workers, presuming that you've briefed them on the contents of that method statement, and now you need to collect some signatures to acknowledge that they've read and understand the contents of the method statement. What's great about Dashpivot is it works in conjunction with the Sitemate app. So all of your workers can set up a free digital ID card using the Sitemate app, and then using the Dashpivot app, you can actually scan the QR code that is embedded inside their digital profile and automatically populate the person's name, signature, the time and date, and the GPS location of where that scan actually took place. So you can see we've got the columns here, but we haven't scanned anyone yet. I'm going to show you how we can do that using the Dashpivot app. So if we switch across to my tablet, this is the Dashpivot app. We're currently in the Photos section, so we need to go to Templates. And under the Safety section, you can see that we have our demolition method statement. So we're going to tap on that. And you can see that we've got a form here already. So that's the one that we're working on the website. So I'm just going to tap on that. And if we scroll to the bottom, and keep in mind, a lot of the content was pre-filled and we didn't fill out everything. So there's a lot of content to skip over. But once we get down to the bottom, you see that we've got that same table that we saw on the website, but we have an option to open up the scanner. So what this does is if we click scan, you can see it's just opened up the QR scanner, and I've actually got my Sitemate ID on my phone, and you can see here, this is the Sitemate app. So it's got my digital ID card, it's got my name, it's got my signature, and it's got a QR code for my ID. So it actually scanned it just then, but you can see if I put the QR code inside this square here, it actually scans me on. And so you can imagine if you've got 20 people in the room, it's very easy to just walk around. You can use the QR code. It works from all different angles, and it will actually keep a log of all of those scans inside of the app. So you can see it actually scanned my ID a couple of times, so we can actually delete a couple of these because we don't need them. But yeah, it's recording the name, the company, the signature, the date, time, and the location as well. So it's creating high quality records inside of this method statement document. Now, let's say that we want to make some changes to our method statement templates. This template was actually configured at the company level within our home folder. So if we go to the home folder and go to the template library section and go to our template here for our demolition method statement, if we select it, you can see we get this little edit button. We can open that up. And if you haven't seen this before, this is just the template builder. The way that it works is you've got a series of fields to choose from on the left, and in the center of the screen, we've got the actual fields that we need to fill out whenever we create one of these method statements. So you can see we've got a date field up the top. Maybe we want to add in an extra text field just below that, so we can just drag that in. These fields, they all have sub options. You can rearrange them. You can make certain fields required. There's lots of things that you can do from this interface. But I just wanted to show you that if we scroll down, we had our big table with all our pre-filled content, and then we had a default table below it. So I just want to point out that, and this is very common for things like method statements, you'll just want to make sure that with all of the pre-filled content, you'll want to use what we call a pre-filled table. This just means that you've got complete control over the contents of every cell inside of your table, and you can customize how many columns and how many rows you have in the table. So you have a lot of flexibility in what you can do with the pre-filled table, but it is capped in terms of the number of rows that you can have in the table. You can't actually add any additional information into the table when you're actually opening up and filling out a method statement. Whereas just below that, we have what's called a default table. And it's slightly different in that, we still define all of the columns in the table, but when we go to fill it out, we can add in as many additional rows and fill out additional information if we need to. So the pre-filled table is good for all of that pre-filled information that we want to have populated into the form every time we create one. And the default table is great because we can add as much additional detail as we need if we're working on a particular task or project that requires some additional detail. So just wanted to show you that. And once your method statement templates are set up, your team will be able to start using them. So whether it be via the Dashpivot website or via the Dashpivot app, and the app is great because it works on phones, it works on tablets, it works on iOS and Android devices, it's got offline mode, it's got autosave, it's got draft mode, It has a photos section where you can mark up the photos, you can stamp the photos. There's heaps of stuff that you can do in the app. But eventually you'll end up with a bunch of records that look like this. So each of these boxes represents a form that's being filled out. We can click on that to see that method statement form. Or if we need to run a search, because over time you might have hundreds of these forms, if you need to run a search, we recommend using what's called the register view. And this is a little bit more like a spreadsheet. So it's just taking all of the information contained within those method statements and displaying that information in a register. So each of these rows represents a method statement that is being filled out. And then we have columns for each of the fields on those method statements. And we have filters for some of the columns. So we can filter by person, we can filter by the date, we could filter by the plant and equipment that was used, the people who were on site, all sorts of things. And then once we've found what we're looking for, we can always run and export as well. So we can bulk export or just select each individual form. We can export to CSV or download PDF, and there's a couple of different PDF options. So be sure to check that out. The last thing that I want to show you in this video is the analytics section. So if you wanted to track how many SWMS forms have been filled out over time, or I should say how many method statements have been filled out over time, we can go to the analytics section. I actually already have a chart set up. We have a dashboard called safety. And if we click on that, we actually have a chart already set up that is tracking the number of demolition method statements that have been filled out. So if we open up this chart, you can actually see that over the last couple of weeks, we can see that Daniel in blue filled out a couple of method statements, and so did Felix afterwards. So this is just time on the x-axis and the number of forms on the y-axis. There's heaps of things that you can do in here. We've got a settings block where you can change the interval, you can change how you want to display this information, and just like the register view that we looked at before, you can apply some filters to really refine what information you're looking at. So when you don't have many forms, it looks pretty simple like this, but if you've got 200 or 300 of these method statements over time, over many months or years, being able to apply those filters becomes really powerful in terms of monitoring compliance. And when audit time comes around, it's really easy to demonstrate that your workforce is actually using the procedures and the documents that you have in place. So that's it for this video. Remember that there are a bunch of free method statement templates available in the public template library in Dashpivot. Just click Add Template, search for Method Statement, and then you'll see all the options that we have there. We've also got plenty of other tutorial videos and articles explaining the various features inside of Dashpivot. Feel free to check those out. And if you get stuck with anything, our support team is available via the live chat, both on the website and in the mobile app. So that's how you can use Dashpivot for various method statements like SWMS and RAMS. And thanks for watching.